Hello everyone, welcome to the History Valley Podcast with your host Jacob Berman. Today I'm joined by Sylvester Holt, and we are going to be responding to a video that Jason DeCosta made about the both of us last year. So this is a response that's been a long time coming, and although it's late, it just has to happen. So here it is. It's happening, we're here, we're going to respond to what Jason DeCosta had to say. We're going to play the entire video. We're going to stop here and there at his points, his errors that he makes, and we'll go from there. So let's start.
We are Myth Vision. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Myth Vision. If you have a PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, we'll take it all. How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jason DeCosta. Welcome to Consistent Preterism. Today we're doing a very special show, Christmas with the Cranks. A look at the dishonesty and cowardice of Derek Lambert and the Myth Vision gang. And I hope you all enjoyed my little Christmas intro there. I thought it'd be fitting with the lovely cover pic of the Cranks themselves. And, pardon me, there's a lot of reasons why I am going to do this audio today as I drive and cruise. Derek's dishonesty and his cowardice has really shined through the last few days. First of all, Derek has banned me, from what it seems, from commenting on his YouTube channel, okay? And it started, so Derek and I have obviously had a bit of a relationship for a few years. He and I have had much of the same journey through our theological viewpoints.
And the way he was,
although he, excuse me, has now drifted off into the endless myth theories, and he's so lost in theories.
Right now. Okay, so it's not that the man is lost in theories. He's bringing different scholars on, just as I am, to get their different viewpoints, and they're very valuable viewpoints. They're highly educated people. They know what they're talking about, and both him and I are trying to learn. And we both want to learn. We aspire to learn, and that's not a bad thing. We're not lost in endless different myths. Everything is. I've said this before. I'm going to say this again. History is fragmentary. Even V. Bar Ehrman himself will say that we can only reconstruct what probably occurred in the past. I'm slightly paraphrasing there, but that's just about what he said. And it's because of that we have different people with different theories about things that are not so conclusive about the past, such as the historicity of Jesus, among other things. So he's bringing different people on, not only to get their viewpoints, to get consensus scholars' viewpoints, but to get alternative theories as well, to give voices to people that don't have voices, or should I say, that don't have a loud enough voice. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Which is something that, quite frankly, Jason DeCosta just doesn't understand, doesn't want to understand. What are your comments, Sylvester?
Yeah, I agree. It's always good to have an open mind and have different people have their interpretations on how this stuff is put together and what can we know about like stuff in the ancient past and stuff like that.
Exactly. Let's continue.
That he'll never come to any sort of sensible understanding of what this Bible is actually saying, because he's just got his claws in 100 different things, and he's missing, well, he doesn't miss because he knows he's a liar, but he's acting like he's missing the truth. of AIO, okay? But we've had this relationship. He had me on the show. He's talked to me about certain things. We've had conversations on the phone. And obviously it doesn't take a genius to see that Derek has an interest in IO, okay? And he often asks all of his quote-unquote brilliant guests about IO to see what kind of reaction and remarks and rebuttals that they would give. And he does so with the hopes and expectations that these experts, so-called experts, will rip it to shreds with their endless intellect, right? But unfortunately for Derek, that hasn't gone quite as planned. If you recall, Derek started to engage with the Creating Christ bozo, James Valiant, who looks a little bit like Bozo the Clown without the makeup on. He started to ask him about it.
So these are just insults being hurled, no evidence, no coherent counter arguments, just a bunch of insults being hurled, incoherent insults. No doubt a reflection of some anger going on there, whether he wants to deny that or not. He's obviously unhappy, and he's so enraged at the criticisms that's been given to him that that's all he has to say for like the first 3 minutes and 41 seconds. I guess subtract that by around 20 seconds because of the ridiculous intro imitation of Myth Vision. Yeah, this is not evidence. Calling somebody a crank back is not evidence against their counter arguments against you. Excuse me, I didn't say that right. It's not evidence against their arguments against you. So your counter argument is flawed from the start because of the obvious emotional outburst as being the premise of your argument, which is ridiculous ad hominem.
And so a year or two ago, there was some engagement between him and myself over the Creating Christ theory. And if you recall, I ripped that theory to absolute shreds. And I have done so probably 10 times over on my YouTube channel. But if you want a good one, if you want to take an hour and a half out of your day while you're driving, whatever it may be, and listen to me absolutely murder James Valiant's theory, all you have to do is go to the YouTube search bar, type in Jason DeCosta Creating Christ Theory, or Jason DeCosta James Valiant.
You did not debunk his theory.
Or Jason DeCosta Creating Christ.
No.
That's probably the easiest way. Jason DeCosta Creating Christ.
Useless.
And I go through very methodically, not driving. That was one of the ones where I actually sat down and focused a little bit.
Oh my God, pause this here. James Valiant's theory is based on something that's been discussed before for quite a long time by Professor Eisenman and numerous others. I think even F.C. Bauer discussed it. I don't remember all the names at this time, but what I'm trying to say is the idea that the New Testament is pro-Roman is in no way original to any recent iteration of the same idea, or even the idea of Roman provenance. Okay, Romans 16:11. Romans 16 is probably a separate letter, because it did say Romans 16:22 that Tertius, or Tertius, however one wants to pronounce the name. I've heard it pronounced in both ways. Tertius is probably the better way. I'll go with that. Tertius says that he wrote this letter, Romans 16:22, in which he probably did, and then in the rest of the epistle to the Romans, you got Paul saying he's a kinsman of someone called. There's someone in there that is a kinsman to Aristobulus, which sounds like Aristobulus. I can't remember exactly where it mentions this. I'll have the verse added to the screen during the edit of this video. And then, here's the other thing, okay? Because for those of you that are not familiar with Israel only, I'll give a brief summary what the theory is supposed to be. It is the idea that both the Old and New Testaments are perfectly in unison and harmony with one another, each and every single book. And that's despite all the translations and mistranslations and copies and different authors being involved. Somehow the whole thing is all nice and tidy. And that it's all about Israel, and only about Israel. Even the people that are supposedly Gentiles in the New Testament that are converting to Christianity are actually Jews somehow. That includes Cornelius and the Centurion, or Crispus and Gaius, and numerous other people that are converting to Christianity, and that they're actually part of the diaspora and not actual Gentiles. They're the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And in effect, this is supposed to nullify futurist Christianity, the current form of Christianity that exists now, from their point of view. Scholars have numerously debunked the theory numerous times, and they've got into the etymology, all the complicated stuff about why, like linguistics and all that, looking at it in the Greek, translating it, and comparing notes, and they explained why this theory isn't even possible. Galatians chapter 3 is a wonderful example about how this theory already has a problem. If this is supposed to be Israel only, okay, and he's trying to bring in the diaspora, then what's this whole deal about a crucifixion in Galatians 3? O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, it was before your eyes that Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. He's going to the Galatians, as obviously there's Jews down there, but there's a bunch of Gentiles too down there. What is Paul doing all the way in Galatia, trying to preach to them that Christ was actually crucified, and they're rejecting it? They don't buy his argument, which, quite frankly, there's actually a problem with Paul's letters. Pilate's never mentioned in there. That's a very complicated mess. I'll get into another video. I'm not going to address that here. Let's go to Galatians 4 about sons and heirs. I mean that the heir, as long as he is a child, is no different from a slave, though he is the owner of everything, but he's under guardians and managers until the date is set by his father. In the same way, we also, when we were children, were enslaved to the elementary principles of the world. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. What? Adoption as sons. But if you're the lost sheep of the house of Israel, what's the point of being adopted? That doesn't make any sense. You can't be an Israelite in the diaspora, already a member and a descendant of the legitimate Israelites from thousands of years ago, and yet you're being adopted into Jesus' flock. What? I'll give an explanation for that, because the evidence is in the pudding. This guy, these people are Gentiles, total Gentiles. Not an ounce of Israeli blood is flowing through their veins. Why else would they be adopted under the flock of Jesus, under the fullness that the text is talking about? This is absurd. Galatians is like the finest example. Even, like, it is the finest example of the text not being in total, like, these people are not in total agreement at all. The people that Paul's in conflict with, they're not. Even Jerome, if I remember correctly, he translated the Galatians into Latin, as well as the rest of the New Testament. He wrote to the Catholic Church in that era. I think he lived in the 4th century CE. He was writing this stuff shortly after Eusebius did his thing with his ecclesiastical historia, or history of the church. Jerome said that he was disturbed to see that the saints were arguing among another in the epistle to the Galatians. And he, being theological and an adherent to the Catholic faith, it's understandable why he's disturbed. There's just no way. How about Galatians 5? For freedom Christ has set us free, stand firm therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Look, I, Paul, say to you that if you accept circumcision, Christ will be of no advantage to you. Galatians 5:1. So the guy is not even following the Torah. He's rejecting circumcision. He says, if you circumcise, you're not of Christ. He said that several times. How the hell does that possibly Israel only? Going against the Torah. How is that Israel only? I've said enough. What are your comments, Sylvester?
Yeah, I feel like he's just cherry picking the text and like flipping it around to make it say one thing when it really is saying something else. That's what Jason DeCosta is doing.
Yeah, so are 40,000 other denominations of Christianity right now. This is no different. And of course, he'll respond against people like me as if we're Christians when we're not. And we'll say, well, y'all just want to believe in some futuristic version of the text. I'm like, no, I'm not a futurist. There are failed prophecies in the text. And everything I'll say is, yeah, to a point, there is definitely some indications that the text was written, actually plenty of indication, but the texts were written for the time, for the era. But that doesn't mean Jason DeCosta is right about what he's saying about Israel only. By far, he isn't. It does not vindicate him at all. Let's continue.
Back in simpler times, but yeah. So check that out if you want to see me absolutely rip James Valiant to shreds. Okay. Then Lambert brought it up to. Well, he's brought it up to a lot of people. In fact, one of the subscribers on my channel brought to my attention that there's this kid named Jacob Berman. I think his name is Jacob Berman, maybe? I don't know. But he is a Myth Vision guest and supposedly has a wealth of knowledge in his head. And he did a video like a year ago. It's the most lame video. In fact, I couldn't get through more than 3 minutes of it because it looks like he's doing it from a dungeon, like he's locked in somebody's basement and he has YouTube capabilities. He did a video. He's got some black dude on the video with him. He's like Skyping the guy. And the video is called, just if you want to look at this pitiful production, and perhaps one day I'll come around and just rip that to shreds too, but it's really not worth my time. It looks like a 4th grader did it. And honestly, he sounds like a 4th grader. The audio is horrible. He mumbles. He slurs his words. I don't know if he's high on meth or something. Who knows? But it's a horrible production. But if you want to look for it, just put Jacob Berman, Israel Only. You should find it. It's basically him in his mother's basement.
So let's pause right there. Okay. So the person that he referred to by what I cannot describe as anything else but a racist tone there, he was obviously being racist to you, Sylvester, because he was talking about you, as you know. We did that video that he's talking about a year ago from that time, December 2020, and so the video was actually done in 2019. And all he did was refer to you by the color of your skin, and all he had to say about me is that I'm in my mother's basement, recording in the dark, and that I slurred my words together. Okay, so here's something that I don't know if I made clear before in the past. Back in those days, I had a more of a serious case of muscle spasm in my neck, and it made it difficult for me to speak. And I went to a chiropractor, and they helped my neck out with their physical treatments of the issue, and I can speak better because of that. When I was younger, I didn't have that problem, but it just was suddenly there, and it got worse over time. The pressure just built up. It's awful. Aside from that, the other thing I had a problem with is I did not know how to make videos like I do now. 2 years ago, I sucked at recording. I had to redo them all the time. You remember that, Sylvester. I had no idea what I was doing. It was hard. Now it's easy. If there's a mistake, I can just cut it out of the video at the end during the editorial process and then fix it all up. Back then, I had to redo it all because I just didn't know how to do it. That was a pain in the butt. But still, Jason, that does not debunk anything that I've said in that video. As a matter of fact, you only spent 3 minutes watching that video, so you don't even know what I'm talking about. All you got was a quick intro of what I was going to talk about in that video, and that was me with my opening statement saying, okay, here's the problems of Israel only, let's lay it out. You watched it for like, what, 3 minutes? You could not have even watched it long enough to know what my problems were with Israel only. If you watched it like a quarter or halfway, then you could probably come up with a decent response. But you can't. All you have to do is, again, make fun of me. And you said something racist about Sylvester. Now, you probably didn't intend it that way, but it did come off that way. Okay? That was not cool. Refer to him by his name, not by his skin color. You should know better than that, Jason. But then again, I suppose you don't, because all you care about is getting angry all the time at anyone that goes against your theory. It sounds like someone that's familiar. No pun intended. Alright, I'll give a couple of examples of what I said in that video, and then we'll move forward. The point I was making in that video was in Deuteronomy chapter 32. In the Dead Sea Scroll version, I'll have the text on the screen here. It says that the Most High God divided the nations of the earth according to the number of the sons of God. In fact, recently I did a show with Dr. Kip Davis, whom is a scholar and expert. He's a PhD in Dead Sea Scroll studies. He knows what he's talking about. He showed me a picture of a manuscript on the screen, and he explained to me it said B'nai Elohim, which is something I was already familiar with, but the way he explains it is in a more of an expert, from an expert's point of view, and he clarified several points that I made during the video when I asked about Deuteronomy and talking about the Jewish God, the Lord Adonai Yahweh, inheriting Israel from his mythological father, Ha-Elyon, or Ha-El Elyon, the Most High God, or Theos Hypsistos in the Greek, the highest God, which is actually, that phraseology is used throughout the New Testament. Jesus is usually called the son of Theos Hypsistos, and not Kyrios. Kyrios, for those that don't know, I've mispronounced that in the past as Krios, although I think sometimes it's pronounced that way. But Kyrios means the Lord in Greek, and that title is used for Jesus. It's never used for his father, once. Even older manuscripts of the Epistles of Jude, even though the Epistle of Jude I meant, there are later manuscripts that suggest Kyrios was interchangeable for God and Jesus, but the older manuscripts indicate it was originally separate. So it's kind of iffy with Jude, but other than that, it's pretty much one of the few things that the whole New Testament is in unison on is that Kyrios is a reference to Jesus. And in Jude, it said that Kyrios had led a people out of Egypt. That's referring to Jesus, or Lord. So, Jesus is being identified with the God of the Old Testament in the Epistle of Jude, which I presume was written before the Gospels. Jude is not saying Jesus is God. It says that God is the Most High, in which God and the God of Israel are being distinct from one another. Because Yahweh is not the supreme God, he's the son of the supreme God, whom is simply referred to as El Theos, Deus, or God, depending on which New Testament you read. Whether it's a Latin Vulgate version, or the Greek version, or the English version, or a modern Hebrew translation of the New Testament. The other thing I want to point out is in Romans, Paul being a Herodian does not fit with this theory of Israel only at all. In fact, I have stated in the past, if anything, it's more like this was more like a joke, but I brought it up. A Herodian Israel only. But I don't actually believe that. It's just, the point I made there back then was, is that Paul seems to be heavily focused on a Herodian propaganda machine in his text, which was the point of that video I did with James Valiant back in the day, back last year, about the Herodian connections in Paul's letters, which are quite numerous, I might add. I'll also have on the screen that Josephus tells us that Saul, the kinsman of Agrippa, that's obviously Paul the Apostle, he was assisted by the Romans, and the Romans assisted him and Costobarus, his brother, in escaping the palace of Herod on the year 66 CE. Acts also tells us about Romans rescuing Paul here and there. So I'm like, okay. If this is Israel only, why are the Romans helping Paul out? What's going on there? Obviously, there's another agenda here, and it's not Israel only. Pro-Romanism and Roman propaganda in the New Testament does contradict Israel only. They don't mold together at all. You have other comments, Sylvester?
Oh, no, that's fine.
All right, let's continue the video.
And so this bozo tried to refute I.O. Then he goes on and he asks Dr. Robert Price about I.O. And we all remember this, right? When Robert Price was asked about I.O. one too many times. When Derek hit him with the oh so clear, what does Hebrews 9:15 mean? That he died for sins committed under the first covenant. What does Romans 9 mean? Where Paul literally defines the saved Gentiles as the children of Israel. What does all this mean, Dr. Price? And Dr. Price decided that he had enough. He was going to throw up his hands. You never see the doc get mad, too, by the way, which I'm pretty proud. I'm proud. Because AIO drove Dr. Price to a state of anger. Anger. I mean, you could almost see him shaking a little bit. He was so angry. Now, again, I always bring up the point. Why would a Bible mind such as the Price...
Let's pause this. Okay. Why did Dr. Price get frustrated with Israel only and wanted nothing further to do with it? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The reasons that are in the pudding. It's quite clear. Dr. Price has had enough of dealing with people that think they're right all the time, and even when they're wrong, they're right. And that is exactly, I mean, well, not everybody Israel only thinks like that, but a lot of them do. Especially Jason DeCosta here. They are so bold in their claims that even when they're criticized and counter evidence is presented against their argument, they take it to be as more evidence for their argument and not less. And then they quote other verses in the New Testament that supports their theory that are obviously cherry-picked. And that's all they can do. Because, like I said, there are 44,000 denominations of Christianity out there, like Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists, whatever. And they cherry-pick the text to make it say whatever they wanted to say. This is no different. And that's why biblical scholarship is often stated the New Testament has contradictions. And Bart Ehrman has discussed that numerously. He's a textual critic as well. So no, Jason, that's just another fail.
Not want to talk about I.O. It's a theory. It's a very, very good theory.
No, it's not.
It's a theory that uses nothing other than the text that it's given. It doesn't jump around. It doesn't go to the 4th century. It doesn't go back to 700 BC. It looks specifically and exclusively
Let's pause
at
this.
the texts that we...
No, Jason, you do jump around. Your theory does jump around. You don't understand the difference between the epistles in the New Testament, in which either all or majority, I say majority, I think some of them actually were written in between Gospels. That's a new development recently in my thinking, and I'll do a video about that later. Paul's letters and the way they view Jesus is very different from the way that Jesus is viewed in the Gospels. Very differently. 1 Corinthians 2:8 has Jesus being crucified by the archons. And these are not earthly beings. These are spiritual beings. And in Philippians 2:5-7, Jesus becomes a man. And in Galatians 4:4, Jesus is born of a woman. In fact, I referenced that earlier in this video. So, notice that Paul can't even name the parents of Jesus. He just arbitrarily says, born of a man, born of a woman, trying to make the case that Jesus at some point was a man. Now, whoever this man was, I would say, existed, but the problem is, Jesus is the God, incarnating as the man. Paul claims that the man, whoever that person was, is the incarnation of Christ. And he made the case after the man died. That's why he said. That's why he says Paul. That's why Paul said he had a vision, and that's when everything became clear to him, because he supposedly never met the man that he's talking about. But in the Gospels, they know everything about the man. He gets crucified by Pilate. They know the things he said. Now, Paul does quote the man a few times in 1 Corinthians, I think it was 15, or is it 11 or 12? I don't remember where. Somewhere in 1 Corinthians, Paul quotes him 3 times. It might have been in 2 Corinthians, but I know in one of those letters it does. I'll have to go look for it and put the verses on the screen. But Paul barely knows anything about Jesus the man. And Jesus the man's story is not given a decent expansion or explanation, or is not written in a detailed fashion until we get to the Gospels and Acts of the Apostles, as well as the book of Revelation. So no, Jason, there are different points of view here in the New Testament, and you're not accounting for that. You are jumping around in the New Testament. You are not understanding that the gospel Jesus is very different from the way that Jesus is described from the way Jesus is described in Paul's letters. So no, you are jumping around. So don't tell us all here that you are the one that's not jumping around when you most certainly are. You need to account for the differences. The letters are obviously written before the Gospels. Their theological thinking is more primitive than the Gospels. The Gospel form is more advanced. But you don't understand that. You think everything is in harmony. But why don't the Pauline authentic letters... Oh, wait a minute. You don't... I remember now. You don't care if the letter is authentic or not. You say it doesn't matter if it's authentic or not in the I.O. theory. It actually does. It does. Why is it only in 1 Timothy chapter 6, Paul mentions Pilate? Never brings him up in any other letter. Not even the other forgeries bring him up. Why is it in Paul's letters, Galatians, Philippians, Philemon, 1 Thessalonians, Romans, I think I named them all. Why does he not mention Pilate in there? Why does he not? Because his version of Jesus is different. You know, even if someone were to argue that 1 Timothy is authentic, that Paul did write it, which I don't believe he could have written it. What? Let's say he did. What? Pilate gets only one mention? In fact, I'm going to read that passage right now in 1 Timothy 6. I just got to go find it real quick, but I'll find it. I will find it. Almost there. Here we are. Okay, here we go. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 13. I charge you in the presence of God, who gives life to all things, and of Christ Jesus, who in his testimony before Pontius Pilate made the good confession. Good confession. He didn't even mention that Pilate crucified Jesus, as a matter of fact. It just said he made a confession before Pilate. So even if that letter were authentic, it gets us nowhere close to the gospel of Jesus. Thoughts, Sylvester?
Yeah, it's not an authentic letter. I think some scholars say because of its of the.
Of the what?
I'm trying to think. I forgot I was going to say something, but I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, but just continue.
All right.
We are given in the Bible. So why wouldn't Price want to look at that? Why would he throw up his hands in pure anger and frustration and literally say to Derek that he doesn't want to talk about Israel only ever again? And of course, Derek tucked his little tail between his legs and said, okay, Papa Price, we won't do that anymore. Because you are the main reason why I have so many subs. Because I'm using you, I'm pawning you off for money. Okay, because that's what Derek's doing. Derek's a genius in that regard. All right, he uses his addiction for his own personal gain or his prior addiction. He uses this myth vision, pawn off Dr. Bob Price, go visit him 4 times a month. I mean, this guy must be like, what the hell? I mean, I'm sure he's liking it because Derek's paying him. But Derek's literally going to this guy's house 4 times a month to ask him questions. So, yeah, the gloves are off, all right, because I've had enough with the dishonesty and the cowardice of these chumps, okay? I used to have somewhat respect for this kid.
I'm going to pause this here. Okay, before I read this verse, there's something I want to explain here. This, what I'm about to read here, by itself, totally annihilates Israel only. Totally. Unless you want to believe that all centurions in Rome are diaspora and lost sheep. Okay? Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 to 13. The faith of the centurion. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go, let it be done just as you believed it would, and his servant was healed at that moment. Alright, so Jason, if you do watch this video, explain to me in your response, if you do respond to this, why is the centurion's faith greater than an Israelite's? This whole thing is ancient Israel only. Harmonized. Complete unison. In complete harmony. Why is a centurion's faith greater than an Israelite's? Based on Io's logic, every centurion, every Roman centurion in the 1st century CE at least, are Israelites. They are diaspora. They are the lost sheep. That was the whole point of that Herodian Israel only scenario that I brought up on that video a while back. It's a flaw in your theory. That's what HIO exposes. It's a flaw in your theory, in which if Israel only is true, HIO would have to be true as well. And it would be a never-ending hamster wheel of contradictions. Both theories are wrong, because HIO depends on IO in a very peculiar and strange way. as I've explained earlier. Every single centurion would have to be an Israelite. What are your thoughts, Sylvester?
Yeah, I don't think it's like logical because this just because so many people have so many ethnicities, like how can everybody come from the same like tribe, whatever? So like
Exactly. Yes. Let's continue.
But now I don't. He's in the doghouse. He's in the shitter, and he's not coming out. So Bob Price showed his true colors and gave up on AIO. He didn't want anything to do with it. Ask yourself a simple question here, folks. Why would he give up on AIO? Why not crush it like the cockroach that it's supposed to be? Okay. Then, moving along from Bob Price, Derek rallies up $700 and pays Dr. Richard Carrier, the esteemed, God-hating, sexual deviant, multiple girlfriend, atheist himself. If you're wondering what that's all about, yeah, Carrier was married for 20 years, divorced his wife because he figured out that he was polyamorous.
Which has nothing
that's
to do
how you
with
pronounce
this.
it. Where you have multiple girlfriends. He just figured that...
Another Ad-Hominem here. This has nothing to do with the argument here. This has nothing to do with IO. No matter what Dr. Carrier did in his life that is not part of his research activities has any bearing on his research activities. It has nothing to do with it. It's like saying somebody peed in the toilet, so that would mean his theory is wrong. Using the restroom is not related to working on a theory, Jason. Okay? In the same way, Dr. Carrier's multi-relationship scenario has nothing to do with his theories. Well, or what he thinks. So that's not a debunking. In fact, actually, that also falls under the equivocation fallacy. Dr. Carrier believing that a man can have a relationship with more than one person at the same time does not invalidate anything Dr. Carrier has said in any work that he's ever worked on. That's just ridiculous. Sylvester, comments?
yeah, it's like he's trying to avoid by using like ad-homs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's the way, that's how he was wired. He needed multiple girlfriends. Hey, listen, bozo, it's called you're a pervert and you're a sexual deviant. That's what it is. Don't put a title on it.
Ad-hominem.
You're a scumbag, plain and simple. And so he's got this, and this is fact. You can fact check this. Go to Carrier's site and search his little polyamorous, whatever you call it.
Ad-hominem.
Search it on his site and you'll find an article. He wrote a blog all about his sexual explorations.
Has nothing to do with this.
And if you go to how to book him, maybe I'll link it in.
All right. So when someone doesn't have an argument, what they do is they try to search dirt on somebody, which also reminds me of someone that I've dealt with recently, who is also as immature as Jason DeCosta is. So that's what Jason is doing. He's searching dirt because he can't defeat anything Dr. Carrier has said about I.O. and his criticism of it in his blog. So he's searching dirt on Carrier because he doesn't know what else to do. I.O. is wrong. Jason knows it. Doesn't want to admit it. He's in denial. And he knows that the criticisms given by Dr. Carrier are undefeatable. Totally undefeatable. Dr. Price, the theories that I've set, the counter arguments that I presented as well against I.O., and the arguments of numerous others, Bar Ehrman, whatever. Multiple people have commented on this. This theory, it's trash. It does not work. Way too many contradictions in the New Testament exist for this theory to pan out.
Since we're roasting these losers. Okay, what I'll do is I'll link these links later on today. I'll link them in the comments so you guys can go and check out what a piece of shit this guy really is. If you look at his site, he's actually got a page where it's about booking him. And if you want to cringe, go to that page and read how to book this guy. Now, obviously, it's written by him because he's using me and I will come and you will put me in a hotel and all this. So obviously, he's writing about himself, but it's just, you can tell how into himself this guy really is. He is so self-absorbed, so egotistical, so obsessed with himself. And it's beautiful because AIO just stomped him out like the little cockroach sexual deviant that he is.
Ad-Hominems, equivocation fallacies, all over the place in this video. And this is exactly why this video has 26 thumbs down on it, while it has 46 likes. Which the ratio there isn't that good. I mean, yeah, he has more likes and dislikes, but it's only 20 more likes on that video. And by the way, I myself disliked the video. So, there's a reason why it has a lot of dislikes, because this video is full of crap, nonsense. We're only 11 minutes and 2 seconds into this, and we got a long ways to go. Long way to go. Because we have commented on the video numerously, and we're 49 minutes and 32 seconds into the recording. And that's how many, that's because you have so many errors in what you're saying. This might have to be multiple parts. We'll just have to see. Let's continue.
But you should read the page because it's funny. He tells the people that if they're going to book him, he needs a reasonable hotel. They pay for all their travel. And he says he may bring, pardon me, ready for it? A girlfriend. A girlfriend. So he's like Hugh Hefner in a sense, except he's broke, dumb, and looks like Andy Dick.
Really?
So Richard Carrier was commissioned by Derek Lambert to rip IO to shreds. To rip IO to shreds. To come on and look at IO and use that wealth of useless knowledge in his curly head and rip IO to shreds.
All you've done is rant this whole time so far. That's all. Just like I remembered when I watched this video back then. Because I've seen it. I've seen it before. I watched it from start to finish. It's garbage. Exactly as I remembered. So, here's the thing. All you've said is nonsense after nonsense after nonsense, ad hominem after ad hominem, after ad hominem, equivocation fallacy after equivocation fallacy after equivocation fallacy. Okay? Let's say I didn't record videos right now in the way I do. Let's say I kept doing the stuff I did 2 years ago. And I'm saying the same things that I'm saying now, practically. That does not defeat my own argument, counter-argument against IO because of my recording environment. But from your logic, if I make a mistake somewhere else that has nothing to do with this, that somehow, that unrelated scenario, debunks my argument. Kind of reminds me of that video I saw on YouTube a while back. You remember this, Sylvester? About that, there was a guy out there that thought that because a radio signal can get into a car while it's going like 80 miles an hour on a highway, that somehow proves Jesus rose from the dead. He also thought because cell phones have no wire, he works out that weird logic, which is ridiculous, into proving Jesus. This is almost no different than that. That's equivocation fallacies. He's trying to equate things as evidence to other things that are totally unrelated. And that's exactly what you're doing, Jason. It's sad you don't realize that. Let's continue.
And so, Carrier produced probably a 40-page article or blog. I don't know how long it was. But it was lengthy. And it was pitiful. It was absolutely pitiful. It didn't deal with any of the problems. It created a million red herring arguments, none of which dealt with the issues at hand. totally using smokescreen tactics, just like many others before him, to sort of drown the main focus of AIO, just to try to hide all the evidence, cover it up so nobody sees it, and just bury it with word vomit. That was his tactic. But of course, us AIOers can see right through that nonsense. And so we came back and we ripped him to shreds in 20 minutes or less. I've done it 3 times already on that show. Mike Bradley put out a 45-page article that absolutely destroyed the thing. Michael Barris ripped him to shreds as well. But you know what's funny? And you're going to see a pattern here. Myself,
I can't wait.
Mike Barris, and Mike Bradley, the 3 amigos, the 3 musketeers of AIO.
Well, there's a free post.
We all went over to Richard Carrier's blog and we commented because Derek was saying, I want you guys to engage in the comments. He wants to engage. He's going to engage you, right? You guys didn't even engage Jason Staples, right? I ripped Staples' nonsense to shreds as well. But he said we didn't engage with Staples. So we wanted to make sure that we engaged with Carrier. Well, guess what, folks? Carrier shut us down on the comments in just 2 days. 2 days. Okay? Personally, now I've read the other comments, and he says pretty much the same thing to Barris and Bradley. My comments to Richard Carrier were so short and sweet. 2 comments, probably 3 paragraphs each. Short, sweet, to the point, just like I like it. Because I don't like when other people do that to me. You know that I hate when people come on the page and splatter me with an essay, because I'm not going to read it. I'm sure as hell not going to respond to it. But if you come on my page and you put 2, 3 concise statements or paragraphs, you'll get a much better response from me. I'll read it. I'll put together a nice response for you. You probably won't like it if you're an objection, but I will do that. And so I use that same mindset when responding to Carrier on his blog article in the comments. You can still see it. It's still there. I linked that article in the first video I did of Richard Carrier a few days ago. So check it out. But I asked him a few questions. He came back. You could tell he had no answers. His method of engaging is to simply list your statement and then put non sequitur. That's what he does. Non sequitur. I dealt with this. And then he'll list another statement, red herring. And then he'll list another statement, red herring. You haven't dealt with any of my article. That's how he responds. So there's no engagement. This guy's not dealing with our points. He's ignoring.
Dude, that's exactly what you're doing, Jason. Projection. You're blaming Dr. Carrier for everything that you yourself are doing. What have you been doing this whole video, practically? You've been angry. You're equating things, digging dirt on other people, on things that are unrelated. And yet you're saying, you're complaining, but Dr. Carrier, he said that it's red herring. He ain't gonna have it. I'm like, well, bozo. That's something that you like to say often, Jason. That's not true. It's you. Committing the red herring fallacies at the other way around. It's you that is the one that is hypocritical. You're the one that is bending the whole New Testament to fit your wild, entangled theory. All you have had to offer for 15 minutes and 15 seconds of an abomination of a video is anger as a response. That is all you have done. Sylvester?
Yeah. Yeah, he's been angry the whole time. I think he's not actually addressing the arguments in IO. It's just he's just resorting to name calling, Ad-Homs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's not even giving a thesis of what is any type of breakdown of what the IO thesis is. Right? He hasn't really done that in his video.
Exactly.
everything that we're showing him. He's ignoring it all. With good reason, of course. So then I said, okay. I said, that was a pitiful response. And I came back and I laid it out for him again. Nice, short, sweet comment. Very, very easy to understand. And I'll probably, I don't know if I have them saved. It'll probably take a minute for me to get to them, but I can sum them up for you here in a minute, what I said to the guy. But he comes back after this comment. Now, I knew that he was going to have a hard time with the second comment, because the second comment will put anybody to sleep. Anybody. I don't care who you are. It'll put anybody to sleep. Okay, I showed him. I said, listen, Dick, I said, your comments on Jesus not having the nations in view were pitiful. They're laughable. But let's move along, and let me ask you a question. I said, the two sticks of Ezekiel 36, where the two houses of Israel being brought back together, that two-stick imagery, Paul is not using the two-stick imagery for the two houses of Israel in Romans 10, whatever it is, I think it's 10. I said that the two-branch imagery that Paul is using there, you mean to tell me that's not the two sticks of Ezekiel with the two houses of Israel? I said, okay, LOL. Then I went on, I said, and let me ask you a quick question. I said, you say there's no justifiable reason for us to assume that Paul's writing about the lost Israelites when he's speaking of his Gentiles, particularly in the fullness of the Gentiles statement in Romans 11. I said, but what about Genesis 48, where that statement is used? Fullness of the Gentiles, fullness of the nations. Because remember, the word is ethnos, it's nations. One other time in the whole scripture is that statement used, fullness of nations. And guess where it is? Genesis 48. And guess what it says? It says, Ephraim, your descendants, in other words, the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom, Israel, your descendants shall become a fullness of nations. It uses multitude, but some translations choose fullness because that's its main definition in the Hebrew, fullness. So Israel's descendants are promised to become a fullness or a multitude of nations in the story. One time it's used in the Old Testament. One time. And it's all about Israel's descendants. And then we come to Romans 11, and here's Paul saying, when the fullness of the nations comes in, all Israel will be saved. All Israel will be saved. So I asked him that, and I knew I wasn't going to get a response because this argument puts all the babies to sleep. It rocks them all to sleep, okay? It rocks them all to sleep. And sure enough, a day later, okay, when he probably got done with his 6th girlfriend this month, he finally responded and he said, these are ridiculous arguments, not worthy of my time or whatever.
Let's pause this. Romans 11, right? You're so big into that. Romans 11. You say that puts anybody to sleep. Let's see. Is that really so? Romans 11:11. So I ask, did they stumble in order that they might fall? By no means, rather through their trespass, salvation has come to the Gentiles, so as to make Israel jealous. What? Why would Israel be jealous if the Gentiles are in fact Israelites themselves? The Gentiles being mentioned in this context. Explain me that, Jason. I can't wait. That Romans 11 puts IO to sleep, not the other way around. You have a comment, Sylvester, before I continue?
In the video, did he mention Genesis? Like
Genesis
he said something about Genesis. Yeah, he was talking about how
Ephraim nations. Yeah.
I noticed that in the beginning he said that the IO doesn't jump around, but he's going to the Old Testament. Like that's the first book of the Bible. Like
yeah, he's jumping around. In fact, for his theory to work, he should stay locked in and contained in the New Testament, but he's not doing it.
Whatever. He said, you still haven't addressed any points in my article, and I'm done with you. Your time is done here. I won't be responding to any more of your comments. Now, folks, think about what just happened. AIO put them all to sleep. It put them in a chokehold that they couldn't get out of. and they all went night-night. And the great sexual deviant Dr. Richard Carrier was no different. He went night-night, real quick. 2 rounds. That's all it took. 2 short comments, and he quit. He gave up. He doesn't want to engage anymore. Why is that? The genius Bible guy himself will not engage someone who's clearly hitting him with ironclad facts and evidence for the view. And so he decides that it's better off that he doesn't engage the view. Why would someone do that? Isn't this very Dr. Don K. Preston-esque? Of course it is. He did the same thing. He decided that AIO wasn't worthy of his time, so he just said, you know what? We're not going to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to entertain it. I'm not even going to address it. Folks, the only reason anyone ever does this, and notice they don't do it with any other view. They don't do it with anything else. They'll address any other view. They'll look in, they'll delve, they'll talk about it, they'll engage. They might even debate. But AIO, they don't want to touch it. And the proof is right there. That's the proof. That's all you need to know how true this view is because these guys who have invested their entire lives into putting on a facade that they know what they're talking about, getting paid to take one of their multiple girlfriends to a state and talk to a few idiots, and like he put in his blog page, just make sure you feed me copious amounts of alcohol. That was literally in Carrier's blog page. So the guy's a prick. He deserves what he's got coming to him and what he's getting right now.
My goodness.
And so we got
bunches of alcohol. Has nothing to do with Israel only. I can't even count how many times you've screwed up in this video, Jason. It is amazing. It is astounding.
Derek, we got... Oh, by the way, let's talk about Derek, okay? Because Derek's now joined in with the cranks, okay?
Yeah, you've already said that.
Let me read you, because I commented on Derek's channel, okay, on the latest video on Myth Vision podcast, and I said, basically, when is Carrier's I.O. video coming out? We're salivating here, waiting for it so we can engage in the comments. And so this was Derek's response. You ready for it? And it doesn't even make sense. I mean, I really think this kid just has faked it until he makes it, because this doesn't make any sense. I don't think he even knows what he's talking about. He said this: it would be a waste of time engaging AIO. Their hermeneutics, they're spelled T-H-E-R-E, their hermeneutics for Gentiles being lost tribes of Israel in Paul are the same as black Hebrew Israelites and Christian identity. What? Wait a minute. What does that mean?
What that means, Jason, is your theory is as full of crap as that other theory, the black Hebrew Israelite theory.
Come here with my sheets.
Israelites, how so? Black Hebrew Israelites think they're the ones in focus. Dummy. Our hermeneutics honor audience relevance and context. And then he says, we're the same as the Christian identity. How so? Because we actually look at what the Bible says and formulate our opinions based on what's in the book rather than 100 different theories and opinions and,
All right, I'll admit this. No, IO is not claiming that... they're not claiming an identity here. They're not claiming that they're the true Israelites. The only reason why those theories are being compared is because they both make the same mistakes. They misrepresent the New Testament to fit what they're saying. That's all.
Word vomit theories that you have on your show? Is that why we're like the Christians? Ridiculous. He goes on. He says, I have decided to end engagement with IOers on Facebook, and I may do the same on YouTube due to the abundantly clear cognitive dissonance of considering why the Gentiles in Paul were pagans. So in other words, how convenient could this be? Derek has decided to end engagement with AIOers as he's just about to have Carrier on the show to talk about I.O. Now, isn't that convenient? Here we are, myself and others, looking forward to the video so that we can ask Carrier questions in front of the peanut gallery. So we can put his lack of knowledge on display for all to see. Just like we did with Price. Just like we did with Price. And if you want to see me rip Price, just go to my channel, put Jason DeCosta, Dr. Robert Price. There's plenty of videos. He went down very quickly. Okay? But isn't it convenient that about a week before Derek decides, or whatever it is, to do this video with Carrier on I.O., that he's going to end debate on I.O. He's not going to talk to us anymore. And guess what he did with me? He deleted all my comments. He deleted them all. And I'm sure that I'm blocked from commenting on the channel. Now, why is that, folks? Why is that? I think you know why.
Here we go.
Here he goes. He continues on, Derek. He's
the old argument, right? If it's censored, then that means it's true. No, it doesn't. Nope.
Says, the idea that it's all just a story of make-believe is to exclude the reality if letters being written to actual people on the ground in the first century. I don't even know what that sentence doesn't even make any sense. The idea that it is all just a story of make-believe is to exclude the reality, I'm pretty sure he meant to put of, not if, of letters being written to actual people on the ground in the first century. So wait a minute. So I thought Derek didn't believe in the authenticity of a lot of these letters, right? I mean, that's the whole gist of his show. Now here, he's making the argument that it's to exclude the reality of letters being written to actual people on the ground in the first century. We don't take a stance one way or the other. Personally, I don't need to. I don't need to say, oh, this was a real historical document that was really sent to people in Rome. I don't need to say that. I don't care about that. I don't care when it was written. I don't care if it was really written before AD 70 and it was God's honest truth and these people really did receive a Holy Spirit and they really raptured up to heaven in AD 70 like it says. I don't care about that. I don't care if it was written after AD 70 as sort of a poetic, ideal, fairy tale type story of Israel's salvation leading up to the destruction of the temple. I don't care what it was. So that sentence makes no sense, and it's kind of contradictory because all his guests do is talk about how fraudulent these letters are. He goes on, he says, we have no historical evidence backing this idea. Rather, the contrary, if one is using the lost tribes argument. We need only look at Josephus writing in 73 AD saying the 10 tribes were east of Rome. As if that's an argument.
Okay. So all of a sudden we're going to Josephus. I thought we were supposed to stay in the New Testament. What a mess.
Josephus saying the 10 tribes were east of Rome. Josephus also said the 10 tribes were beyond the Euphrates and are a great number, far too wide to be estimated. A great multitude, far too wide to be estimated. Well, that's the same thing Revelation says about the great multitude coming back from the nations, doesn't it? They were a great number, far too wide to be estimated. How convenient. How convenient. Okay. So that was Derek's comment to me. And this is what he got back from me. I said, Derek, now I wasn't holding any punches here because I've had...
Revelation has been well known to have dated to no later than 96 CE at the end of Emperor Domitian's reign. Because that's the year he was assassinated by the assassins, like Stephanus. Stephen. Here's the thing, okay? Revelation is obviously aware of the antiquities. It's likely borrowing its phraseology from Josephus's works. Not rather be Jewish words or antiquities or whatever or both. Alright, that's number one. Number two, that multitude of nation stuff, that fullness, the numerous, proves nothing, man.
Had it. I've absolutely had it with this kid and with Myth Vision and the dishonesty. Okay, they're cowards. They really are. They all back out. They don't want anything to do with AIO. We comment, They come back, we comment again, they block us. They shut us down. They don't want to hear it. Why? There's only one reason why. But this is what I said to Derek. I said, Derek, you're a joke, a total dishonest fraud. You and the other guys say there's no justifiable reason to assume that the fullness of the Gentiles in Paul are the lost tribes of Israel. No justifiable reason? And then I quoted, Ephraim, your descendant, shall become a fullness of nations in Genesis 48. I said, are you kidding me? The Bible says exactly that. I said, you bozos claim there's no justification for assuming these pagans are Israelites, when in reality, that's legitimately all the Old Testament talks about. I said, how many examples do you need? Everything you idiots claim doesn't exist, exists. Everything you idiots claim is unjustifiable is justifiable. Everything you idiots claim is forced is just simple story trajectory. You've proven the power of AIO. I've shown 500 ways to Sunday how and why these absolutely are supposed to be Israelites gathered in. And you've thrown in the towel. You, Carrier, Price, you're all the same. You all know you couldn't contend with AIO, so you all gave up. Pathetic. I said I'll be destroying Carrier's horrendous blog in the coming weeks when time allows. I'll also continue to piece the story together even further to show that you experts don't have a clue what you're doing in the Bible. Your guests may have skulls full of useless facts and historical info, but they all have one thing in common. They're terrible when it comes to the Bible. Not one of them can contend with AIO. Thanks for joining the list of experts who AIO has put to sleep in 2 rounds or less. And so when that comment posted, Derek obviously didn't like it, okay? Because he knew where it was headed. He knew that people in his peanut gallery were going to see my arguments, and he didn't want them there. So what did he do? Well, he deleted the comment, and he deleted the whole thread, and I'm 99% sure I'm not allowed to comment on the channel any longer. Okay? So something's going on here, folks. Something very mysterious and fishy is going on here, and you know what it is. These guys are afraid to deal with the responses and the objections from AIO. Well, that's just too bad. One thing they're also saying, and some idiot came to my channel and commented saying that I didn't even address one of Carrier's points in the article, in my audio. They say that I'm not addressing his points. They're saying that I'm avoiding his points. Well, no, I'm not avoiding his points. This is what I mean. These people, they don't listen. I don't think they're listening to what's being said. I'm dealing directly with Carrier's main 2 points. Directly. His main 2 points. Number 1, Jesus didn't have the nations in view in the Gospels. That's one of his main points, you know. That was his main, that might have been how he started the article, if memory serves me. That Jesus in the Gospels and in Revelation, I think he combines them, but specifically the Gospels, did not have any nations in view in the Gospels. It was all about the Jews, says Carrier. And I showed him, I said, Bozo, you're way off.
Let's pause. Like I said earlier, we have to go back to Matthew again. It says very clearly, the Centurion's faith is greater than an Israelite's. I got another one. How about the Canaanite woman? The Canaanite woman. How about that? Let's bring that up. The Canaanite woman's mentioned in Mark and in Matthew. Mark 7:24-30, Matthew 15:21-28. Jesus calls the woman Gentile, Syrianite, or Canaanite a dog. How do you explain that? Is that Israel only? Does that somehow mean the Gentiles that are being mentioned in the New Testament are Israelites? No. No, it doesn't. Alright, let's continue.
For Christ's sake, like how I use that there, for Christ's sake, Jesus actually said in Matthew 24, this good news gospel of the kingdom will go to all nations, ethnos, and then the end will come. The same word Paul uses in Romans 11.
And why do you think he said all nations? Because he's preaching beyond Israel. All nations. Did he say to the lost sheep in all the nations? No, he said all nations. All nations, Jason. But you can't even understand that.
It's like he thinks the gospels are reliable. It's like he's like, how do we know if they're actually just making this stuff up, or we don't know if they're like, if they're getting this, they don't tell us where they're getting this information from, so we can't really know what they're saying or what their meaning is.
Yeah, that involves textual criticism and the variations of different manuscripts of the New Testament. You know.
Knows. Fullness of the nations. So you're telling me Jesus didn't have the nations in view in the Gospels? What? Jesus commissioned them to go to the ends of the earth. Jesus told them that he had sheep also not of the Jewish fold, and they too had to come in. Jesus gave the parable of the prodigal son.
Sheep that are not of the Jewish fold? Remember, I mentioned earlier about the New Testament said that there are Gentiles being adopted into Jesus' flock. Yeah. So, with that being said, yeah, Jason, you just contradicted yourself, your own theory. Yeah. Hilarious, isn't it?
Which is about a good law-observant, father-observant son staying home and a rebellious son leaving the fold and heading out to the nations and becoming dirty and unclean. Unclean. Okay? Jesus, in the Gospels, by the power of the Holy Spirit, prompted Caiaphas to prophesy that Jesus not only died for the Jews, but also for the sons of God scattered abroad. Well, who were the sons of God scattered abroad? They were the Israelites. They were the Israelites. They were the seed. They were the descendants. And they were being gathered in. They were the elect. I showed these guys how the elect is a concept that they have to get in their heads. They have to understand that there's a Holy Spirit helper leading the way to find these chosen ones. That's what the whole tale is about. Like Acts 13 and Paul preaching, it says, and as many Gentiles that were appointed to eternal life believe. These are the elect. Not everybody believed. Only the chosen ones. Only the ones that were marked out by the Holy Spirit. Remember when they're shocked because the Holy Spirit was also falling upon Gentiles? Well, that's because these Gentiles were chosen ones. They were heirs according to promise. They're missing the whole point of the story. It's gone over their heads 1,000,000 times.
Acts 15. But some men came down from Judea and were teaching the brothers, unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. And after Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them, Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go up to Jerusalem to the apostles and the elders about this question. So being sent on their way by the church, they passed through both Phoenicia and Samaria, describing in detail the conversion of the Gentiles, and brought great joy to all the brothers. Conversion? Why would they need to be converted if they're diaspora, Jason? And what's this whole thing about a council of Jerusalem? And the following verses talk about a great debate with Peter being involved. What's there to debate for diaspora? Jason?
So that was his first argument that everybody says that I didn't address. And I only gave you the tip. But enough to totally crumble that pathetic point. So when you're going to say that I don't address somebody's arguments, you got to be honest, because I am addressing these arguments. The second one, the second main point that Carrier makes in his article is that Paul's mission was not for the lost sheep of Israel. He says it's totally unjustifiable to and unreasonable to assume that the fullness of the Gentiles in Paul is the Israelites. Well, I just showed you. There's one other place in Scripture that talks about a fullness of Gentiles, and it's Genesis 48. And it literally says that Israel's descendants, not spiritual, bozo, offspring, Israel's offspring would literally become, turn into a fullness or a multitude of nations. It says exactly what these guys claim it doesn't say. Right?
Other way around.
And so I've addressed all of his main arguments in my audios. And don't you think for a second that I'm not...
All right, we're back. Let's continue.
...going to respond to his article. I am just super busy right now, so audio is the best way for me to do it at this point. But I am absolutely going to put forth a long presentation on that article. Absolutely I will. And I'm going to continuously grab that little prick by his curly hair and pull him back into the context. He's going to kick and scream and call for his 11 girlfriends to come and slap me around and save him. But I'm going to grab him and pull him back to the context. And he's not going to be able to get away. And it's going to be embarrassing, like it always is. It's kind of funny how that passage in the Bible that God will use the weak and stupid to humiliate the wise, or I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But that's exactly what's happening here. Now, obviously, it's not a fulfillment, but it's relevant. Here we are, just regular Joe Schmoes.
Dude, the New Testament is not relevant today. That's what you said. So under no circumstances at all is anything today, from your point of view, relevant. Hypocrisy, man. Hypocrisy.
And these guys are giving up. They're throwing in the towel. They don't want anything to do with us. And that shows how true AIO is. So Derek bans me and other IOers about a week or so before he's going to have Carrier on the show. Okay. I think it's just mainly because he knows all of his expert guests are going to lose credibility and they'll be embarrassed by us cranks, right? And it's just really pitiful. It's really pitiful. I'm really disappointed in Derek. I'm disappointed in the Myth Vision guys because they claim to want to, disprove Christianity. Well, hello. AIO is the biggest threat to any Christian, religion or any Christian sect that there is to date. It's the biggest threat.
Jason,
it shuts everybody down, as you can see.
The thumbnail, the background of this video.
What these guys do on Myth Vision, it doesn't shut anybody down.
Way around,
it confuses people. The people that are involved in Myth Vision, they're you can tell that there's a type. They just love to absorb endless amounts of useless information. That's what they get their kicks off of. But AIO shuts down all religion. Clearly, night, goodbye. Because it honors audience relevance. It honors story trajectory.
No, it doesn't. And
it shows how the story comes full circle and ended in AD 70 at the destruction of the temple. It shuts everybody down.
Yes, the Gospels does frequently say that it has Jesus saying that he's coming back in the lifetime of some of his apostles or disciples. Not that some of you will not taste that before the Son of Man comes. All right. I guess that's AD 70 or 70 CE, but that doesn't prove anything that you are saying, Jason. Not even close.
So, folks, I've rambled here for 36 minutes. Excuse me. Haven't even had my morning coffee yet.
Ad-Hominem.
Throat is still a little hoarse. Mm-hmm. But I think you catch the gist. These guys want absolutely nothing to do with AIO. Nothing at all. And, perhaps in the coming years, obviously not right now, because I just can't. But perhaps in the coming years, what I should do is I should start challenging some of these guys to formal debates. And maybe I will. Obviously, you know, I have the personal life stuff that would need to be ironed out. But I feel like that's getting better in terms of people understanding what I'm saying and starting to see the sense behind it. And so I think the more that I piece this thing together and the better I get at explaining it, the easier that situation will become. And in turn, what may happen is I may come out in 5 years, 3 years, who knows, and say, hey, listen, I want to formally debate you, Mr. 500,000 subs or, 1 million views. I want to debate you. You think you know the Bible? You think you know what you're talking about? Let's step into the octagon, okay? And I'll put you out in 2 rounds or less. I guarantee it. So, folks, sit tight. Who knows what'll happen? But in the meantime, I'll continue to produce content as best as I can. And I will surely be eventually getting around to producing a long-winded response to Carrier. Okay? And another thing, quickly, before I forget. Someone sent me a video of Derek on Facebook where he's sitting in his car with his glasses on. He thinks he's so cool, right? And he says something to the effect that Carrier dropped a bomb on IO with his article. It's kind of funny. They're trying to use like our same words and stuff, but he's not fooling anybody. Well, he is fooling all the idiots on his channel because they don't know any better, but he's not fooling the real guys. But he goes on and he says something to the effect of I can't remember what it was. Oh, that we should give him credit for bringing IO to the forefront because he's got a lot of eyes on it. Give me a break, dude. Give me a break. Man up. Take your tampon out and allow IOers to comment on your channel. Because if you don't, and if you continue to censor us, then you're just proving that AIO is true. Plain and simple. And if you want to come over to my channel and you want to comment here, I'll be more than happy to. Let Carrier know he's more than welcome to come and comment in the comments. And we'll go back and forth. I have no problem with that.
He's got better things.
I have no problem with that. So, folks, I hope you all have a great day. Fired up on a Monday morning. And I have not forgot about this series. We're coming at you tomorrow, probably tomorrow, maybe the day after, with, I believe it's number 6 in our series, where we'll be taking a look at Romans chapter 1, and we'll be asking the question, who are these ones who knew God and yet decided that they didn't want to glorify him, and instead they turned to worshiping idols, the work of men's hands, four-footed beasts? Who are these ones who had the revelation, had the relationship, but decided that they wanted to turn on that, and so God gave them up, Paul says. We're going to look at that on the next segment of 100 Reasons. Folks, I hope you all have a great day. Take care, everybody. Don't forget to give it a like, a Rooski. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was a load of crap. What is your final comments on this, Sylvester?
Yeah, he just sounded like he was like he just sounds like a very angry person most of throughout the whole video.
Yeah, I barely quoted the New Testament. He took a lot of chapters out of context. He took Romans 11 out of context. He took Romans 16 out of context. He took the entire Gospel of Matthew out of context as far as I'm concerned. It is, wow, just horrible counter-argument to the argument against IO. Horrible. And the other thing is, what's worse is he is so dogmatically convinced that he is right, even when the evidence is against him. He says that's even more evidence for his points. So, there's that. Alright, I think this brings this video to an end. It looks like we reviewed the whole video. Looks like everything worked out. Well, I'll be seeing all of you later. Thanks for watching. And thanks for joining me, Sylvester.
No problem.
Hello viewers, thanks for watching this video from the History Valley YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if any of you wish to further support this channel, please consider checking out this channel's Patreon page and becoming a patron, and or donate through PayPal or through Super Chat during a live stream. Thank you.